Greetings, everyone. This is Payman Lorenzo, your host of the Leaders Without podcast. Today, I believe it's episode 127. Wow, can't believe it. 127, 127. Wow, would have thought that when I started this a year ago. I have a very special guest for you, my good friend, Kehly MacDuff. She's amazing. She's a fellow Canadian and out west, Northwest British Columbia. She has an amazing story. We had a beautiful chat about 2 weeks ago, I believe. And wow, what can I say to summarize her incredible journey so far is that, first of all, she lost both parents at a young age to addiction. And despite all of that, she was able to bring her life to an amazing place right now. She she had a full scholarship in the U.S. For at the University of Arkansas for volleyball Division One, which is amazing. That was an experience all by itself. We can do it. I told her we can do multiple, almost an entire season for you, one for each different chapters. That's how powerful they are. But we're gonna try our best to summarize everything within that hour or so of this podcast. So that's just one part. And then she had to overcome a toxic relationship that ruined her life for 3 years, and all of that made her blossom. She had a spiritual awakening that made her understand all of the amazing power she had within her and at her disposal. And now she's well, let me see. Oh, she does. She used all of that, all of experiences. Now she's a Reiki Master. She does Akashic Records reading, past life readings. In a nutshell, she's an intuitive energy healer. She's doing a lot of good out there. I love her motto. She has a couple of beautiful mottos. One is healing from the inside out through my pains. Let me to my purpose and mission. And the one that summarizes her life, which is very similar to mine, is living the moment with no regrets. And of course, Kayla, just like me, one thing we have in common is that she's a world traveler. She's been to many places. We're talking about one of my favorite places in the world, Bali. Again, we can't do an entire talk just on traveling and all that, but we might do that in the upcoming year. But I mean, there's so much we can cover. But anyways, without any further ado, Callie, my friend, welcome to the show.
What an introduction. Thank you so much. That
Oh,
was
and I forgot
amazing.
something even more important, more powerful. She overcame 2 NDEs, near-death experiences. That alone can be an entire, not just a topic of an entire episode, but an entire podcast by itself, because that's beyond captivating. So there's so much we can cover. So again, once again, welcome to the show, Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure's all mine. So as I told you before going live, the focus of the podcast is to have a look under the hood to see what's in your heart, to get to know you as a human being, first and foremost, to have a heart-to-heart conversation, hence the name Leaders with a Heart. Are you ready for that?
Yeah, my heart's beating, so that means I'm alive and I'm ready.
All right, beautiful. Now, for people who don't know you, who's Kelly as a human being? We're gonna talk about your business and all that in a moment, but as a human being, who's Kelly as a person?
I'm heart-centered. I am driven. I'm resilient. I am a warrior. I'm a healer. I wear a lot of hats, and what I love most is that I'm a student of life and I continue to be curious and adventurous and open, even when my heart wants to close and, my ego or my mind wants to keep me small. So I feel fortunate where I'm at and with the gifts I have and the knowledge and experience that led me to where I am.
Beautiful. Now, tell us, what makes you happy as a person?
Taking care of myself first. So from loving myself and having self-care and self-love practices in my life, that makes me happy because I can help allow others to feel that joy around me. Because I had a tendency to give, and I had very little receiving. And when you give more than you receive, you're depleted and drained. And it led me to burnout and a lot of different injuries and ailments trying to wake me up. And it's like the alarm clock's going off and you keep hitting snooze. And I like to say it's like a tennis ball and then a bowling ball, or a bowling ball and then a boulder and then like a brick wall. So there's been some gnarly things, but some joyful things, and it's been an amazing ride.
Yes, I can, relate with that because I was like that as well, just giving, 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 doing for others. And when you do that, there's a lot of people will take advantage of you. A lot of people take
Totally.
advantage of
And
you.
it's unconsciously on their part. Like, I don't even blame them. We're
No,
not aware enough for the most part, typically. So I don't even hold, it's my fault for giving my power away.
yeah, they take you for
Yeah.
granted and they mistreat you. They view you lower than you're supposed to be and all that. And I've had to learn that the hard way. I had to start from zero, not once but twice, because it was the first time I didn't understand the lesson. Then it
I
find me.
know.
So now I put myself first. A lot of people would say, "Oh, that's being selfish." No, it's not selfish because you're the most special, the most important person in your life. That's not selfish because you need to be at your best. If you're not at your best, you're not going to be of any use to people around you.
That is
By use, I
right.
mean in the positive way. You want to have an impact, become the greatest version of you, make the most money you can so that you can have the biggest impact. So that's why you need to look after yourself first. And you can looking after yourself first. That's not selfish. That's being altruistic.
I agree with that. And I have this quote that is with every one of my emails. It says,
Mhm.
it is not selfish to take care of yourself. It is necessary. And
Totally.
and I totally agree with that. And if we're not full and whole and feeling, that unconditional love for ourselves, we can't give that to others.
Totally. Absolutely. I love that. We're on the same page on so many levels. Beautiful. Now tell us, Kelly, what makes you smile?
Seeing other people's joy and
Mhm.
like pure happiness, and when there's no distractions and no electronics, and
Oh,
everyone's just
yes.
being present. When people are present, that probably brings me the most joy,
Mm.
because when we're present, we're engaged and we're connected, and it just it's very rare, which makes me sad, because we're surrounded by all the distractions. We can be distracted every 7 seconds. So
Oh,
I
yes.
think presence and connection bring me the most joy.
That's amazing. You mentioned
Mhm.
something about what makes you sad. That's going to be one of my next questions. But now let's take the happiness one or two notches even higher. What makes your heart sing? What makes you come alive as a person?
When others find their own like healing in that journey and that
Mhm,
faith, and when I can walk them through the dark and that gnarly ride,
mhm.
and it's not that I'm doing it for them, I'm just guiding them back to their hearts and their light, and that is my mission in this lifetime, because I felt very alone on my journey, and I never want anybody to feel alone, like, ever. I was surrounded by a ton of people and a ton of teammates, but I didn't feel connected, and nobody was present because they were always like this far off goal, or living in the past, and I was one of them. But what I recognize is presence and connection, and not feeling alone is really important, and more than ever, like with this pandemic, and
Sure.
this global, awakening and shift, let's say.
You mentioned something that's really important, powerful. You said people are living in the past. Do you have any tips on how to not live in the past?
I think it takes practice, but with daily rituals and practices in place, you
Like
can,
meditation?
like meditation, mindfulness, breath work, kundalini, going for a walk in nature,
Mhm,
just sitting and being still, and really going through those emotions, because that's something I didn't do, is going through the emotions that are showing up, whether it's negative or positive, or sad, mad, glad, regret, shame, guilt, whatever it is. Just acknowledge what you're feeling,
mhm.
and then with that acknowledgement, maybe go deeper, and then ask yourself, where is that coming from? And typically where it comes from is our childhood and the trauma or the conditioning that we grew up with, by our caregivers or people who raised us, whether it's a religion, a culture, a community, whatever that is. Look at the patterns, and then go even a level deeper and look at your attachment styles. And once you can really recognize who you are as a unique human being, you can clean up your side of the street and then give back what wasn't yours to carry in the first place. Because most of the time we're carrying our parents' baggage or their trauma, or like other people who've traumatized us, they're putting their trauma onto us, or triggering moments or being reactive. Like those are all people not dealing with their bullshit.
Yes, very well
And we
said.
all got it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That's part of what we are. We have all have baggage, whether we want to admit it or not.
Yes.
And now, just like when you get on a plane, you have to check your baggage before getting on the plane. You have to check all your BS, what's inside of
Leave
you.
it at the door. It's not
Exactly.
everybody else's fault. Like, yes, life can
Exactly.
be hard, but it doesn't mean because you're hurting, you need to hurt others. Like, that's not okay, you know?
Yeah. You know, I saw a meme that's
yeah.
very powerful. I'll send it to you after. It's like this, you have the head of a person, and then the head is like this in the back, and you see all of this thing holding him back. It's all of that, is all of their thoughts.
I know, right?
That is so powerful.
That's so funny. Yeah.
That's the heaviest thing that is holding you back, is what's in your head.
Well, and we only actually have the capability to use only 10% of our brain. So through that breath work and meditation and being still and sound healing and gong baths, like you're able to take, shut down the 10% that, is usually negative anyway, our mental body that doubts us, wants to dim our light, hold us back, create fear. So tap into the other, 90%, even if it was 10 more percent of that full capacity. Yeah. You would be vibrating on a higher frequency. So all of a sudden you're attracting higher frequency into your life, because it's an energy exchange. Everything is energy.
Totally.
And if you're feeling low and dense and heavy, externally, it's probably feeling low, dense and heavy. But if you're feeling, I'm not saying be euphoric and like, oh, we're high on life, but I'm saying work at building your vibration and bringing that frequency up. And when you are feeling low, take note, figure out where it's coming from, allow it to pass, and then be present, come back to your breath, because when you're back to your breath, you're back to being present.
Totally. Absolutely. We're going to talk about that and how to overcome what's in your head in a moment. But now, tell us, what makes you sad and angry? You mentioned a little bit of that now.
Yeah. So my whole life, my mission was like, I'm going to heal the world and like help everybody solve their problems. But with that, I started becoming like more of a martyr, and I'm like, humans are incompetent. They don't even want to help themselves. Like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Totally.
So I became quite, kind of like rigid in my way of thinking, and just thinking that, I had very little faith in humanity at times, just not in a way that I didn't believe in them, but I just was like, they don't even believe in themselves. How can I believe in someone more and love them more and see the best in them? And they don't even see that in themselves.
Yeah.
So like, then I had to, take a step back and recognize like, I can help and guide and provide tools, but they have to do the work. Like they got to want to walk through the darkness. And sometimes it may not be in this lifetime, and that is okay.
At least you're just setting up the foundation. You're just, planting the seeds in their mind and their soul.
And that's right. And, I've had clients that, 10 years ago, I was trying to like give them little nudges of like, hey, just pay attention to that alarm clock you keep hitting snooze on. These are signs, these are red flags. And then, I'll get a message 5-10 years later, or run into these people years later, and they're like, Kelly, what you said to me changed my life. And I didn't, appreciate you at the time for that, but thank you for believing in me more than I believed in myself. And, at the time I was always like, oh, like, I wish I could just save everybody. But, that just made me carry all their pain, and that wasn't serving anybody either.
That is so powerful, because we're all on our own journey at our own pace. Some of us might be 1 or 2 steps ahead of us. Some might be a couple of steps behind. That's why it's never good to push someone. Let them get there. We are gonna get there, but at our own time. Just like you said, when like the saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
That is 100% correct.
Just like you mentioned perfectly yourself. That's one of my favorite, comparisons, expressions. You can take someone to the water, but you cannot make them drink. They have to be thirsty enough to put their head down and drink themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And just meet them where they're at. Love, if you
Exactly.
genuinely love unconditionally, you're not
Mhm.
judging people. So whether they're a drug addict on the street or a high achiever or, the prime minister, it doesn't matter. If you have a terrible heart and you're causing harm to other people, that does not mean you're a good person. So, you don't get to judge, what people are doing, and you don't get to hurt other people just because you're hurting. And, you
Yeah.
know, you may not understand someone's life, but you don't know their story. So maybe ask a few questions, and, if they want to share, then maybe have that conversation. But until and you've heard from that person, we don't get to judge. And I mean, we
Yeah.
can, but that's just a projection of what's actually going on in ourselves. Like I always believe is what we perceive is what we receive.
Oh, totally.
Like
Totally.
it's being mirrored to you what you need to heal or what your shit is. So if you're saying, you're judging somebody for something, that's usually you judging yourself about something, that same thing.
Like the saying says, when you point a finger at someone, four fingers pointing back at you.
100%, and until you're perfect, I don't want to hear it, because we're
Exactly.
all practicing perfect practice. There's no such thing as
Exactly.
being a perfect human. And I believe in practicing and integrating and being and embodying, but
Totally.
you're still going to fail. You're still going to mess up, and you just got to keep getting back up and doing a little better every day.
Perfectly well said. Beautiful. Very wise words. I agree 1,000,000% with that. Now tell us, what scares you?
Not living up to my highest potential,
Oh,
and
yes.
and not so much on a thing, on like a title or award level, but like living up to my highest potential in this lifetime, meaning on an emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, soul. Like I just feel like if I'm not tapping into all 5 bodies, when one suffers, they all suffer. So for me, I'm going to continue to evolve, and through that, I want to empower others to,
Mhm.
have self-empowerment and take their power back and lead from the heart and not from the wound itself. So I would say not living up to, my highest potential in this lifetime would be my biggest fear and thing that makes me feel scared.
Yes. Same here. Same here. Just like your motto. I love your motto saying, leave no regrets. That's the worst
Mm-hmm.
place to be in. There's a very powerful quote that says, the things you will regret most are not what you did do, but what you didn't do. The chance you didn't take, the opportunities you didn't take when you add the chances, the trips that you were
Yeah.
invited and you say you chickened out the last minute.
Yeah. It's like you need to show up your grave all banged up and beat up, and all the lessons, and, turn those burdens into blessings, and just, we all got the same size of grave. You're not bringing your cars or your money or your things. So you better, check yourself and come from the heart, because who's going to show up for you when that time comes?
Yeah,
And it could be a lonely space, and you don't want to be on your deathbed with a lot of anger and regrets and guilt, because that's not fun for anybody.
that's the number one regret of people, that are, and the best that is that the thing they regret they didn't do. That's the number one regret. If I could have more time, this is what I would do. Do whatever you
Yeah.
can not to be in that position. When you get there at the end of your life, that you'll say, wow, I'm glad I did that. There's nothing
Yeah.
that.
And have the conversations, even if they're hard, even if
Mhm.
they're, uneasy and it's uncomfortable, have those conversations so you don't have that regret. If somebody did pass or you passed away, you don't have that heaviness and guilt in your heart.
Totally, totally love that. Now, Kelly, tell us, what is your number? I know you have multiple amazingly talented, you have many talents. What would you say is your number one personal superpower?
I see people's pain and their darkness, and
Mm,
I can also, with that, see the other end, the light, and, the heaven on earth perspective of seeing people as a whole being rather than being broken. So I feel like that's my superpower. I'm very intuitive. I read energy. I pick up energy. I read body language. If the body language isn't aligning with their words, I pick up. I'm
mm,
very I'd say observant would be like I learn through observing, and I learn through other people, and I learn through, things that I've messed up on, or how I reacted in situations or responded or got triggered. So I'm just like so curious, and I feel like my gift, I'm just very intuitive, so I can connect with people's heart right away. Like that people tell me they're like worst life, situations. And I tend to just show up when, that person needs somebody
You're
to
the type
hold
of
space.
person that you meet with strangers within 5 minutes, they're just opening up the heart to you, telling you everything.
Yeah, because I like to ask
Wow.
questions and I'm a good
Mhm.
listener. So I'm curious. I'm always curious.
That's amazing. Curiosity, it's a beautiful quality, absolutely. Because
I
it's all
love it.
about listening and seeing how
Listening.
you can help, how you can contribute, you know.
Yeah, listening. Absolutely.
That's why God gave us 2 ears and one mouth, because we need to listen twice as much. If not, we would have five mouths, one here, one here, one here, one I don't know where else, you know.
Well, and it leads to, my near-death experience, because I actually have a bone anchored hearing aid.
Wow.
It's one that's I got a screw that's screwed to my skull, and then the microphone part clips on the processor. And then so the sound vibrates from the screw to the skull to the inner ear. The hearing aids that go through your ear canals, they don't work for me because my hearing loss is in my middle ear, because
Oh,
the disease that I had ate away all the bones in my ears and ate into my skull, and there was spinal fluid leaking from my brain into my ear, like the night before surgery in 2014. So I also, which led me to a plant ayahuasca ceremony, because I
mm,
wanted to heal my ears. Like, no, I was having zero luck with the medical, with the pharmaceutical, with the doctors. And I mean, there's a lot of great people out there. They just didn't know how to fix the core problem. And through this plant medicine journey, I had discovered I only actually hear love. So I lost hearing, but if I'm hearing negativity or low energy, it's like I block it out. And also what came to me through that ceremony is I had prayed as a little girl. I had prayed, I don't want to hear my parents fight anymore. And then all of a sudden I started getting ear infections since I was 4 years old until 2014. So, and it almost took my life, claimed my life for good in 2014. And what I discovered is it didn't matter how many antibiotics or ear drops or how many surgeries I had or how many doctors I seen, there was still something like in my body, like I had no idea. So I visualized going back to my little girl self as I was praying, and I just rewrote this soul contract
wow.
and payment. I'm telling you, I haven't had an ear infection, zero issues since I did this ayahuasca ceremony in 2015. So 1 year after my near death experience,
Wow. That's
and I healed
phenomenal.
it. And the doctor doesn't even understand it. And
Did you tell him
it's
that
just,
you how you did
I
it?
didn't tell him the ayahuasca, but I said I have been doing other emotional, mental, energetic work. And he believes that. And he is an earthbound angel. He saved me. He's seen me. He heard me. The most beautiful thing about this doctor is, so I was fighting for my life. I had like blood and pus coming from my ears. Like it was like I was dying from the inside out. I was rotting
Wow.
from the inside out. And what this disease was, it's called the cholesteatoma. And it could have been avoided if I would have just got tubes in my ear as a little girl, because then it would have helped my ears drain. My ears are quite small, so they didn't, grow or whatever. They needed to support to get the tubes, but they never did that. They kept just treating my ear infections with ear drops and
Wow.
antibiotics. So it was feeding this disease, like a moist area with moisture that keeps disease alive. So that was the first
Wow.
mistake. So these doctors were just treating the symptom, right? Like what was showing up. But the core problem was my ears didn't drain. So the fluids would just be sitting in my ear with nowhere to go, which created an infection. And it's a cyst in your middle ear, and it eats away all the bones into your skull. Like it'll eat everything in its sight. And it was like 7 years I was begging for my life, and it smelled like a pig
Wow.
farm, like gross. Like I'm like, this isn't helping. Like, please help me. I need surgery. I need something else. These are not working. Begging for my life, right? And no doctor wants to hear it. They just keep sloughing me off and adding to the stacks of prescriptions that I'm refusing to take at this point. And then I finally find my doctor, and he's an ears, nose, and throat specialist. So I had been seeing specialists too, not just a general practitioner, specialist. And they kept just sloughing me off, not listening, not listening. Yet I'm going deaf, which is crazy. Like I actually went deaf for 2 days because it's had so much fluid built up. And my doctor looked at me. He said, Kelly, how are you as a person? Like, I know you've been struggling. I know how bad it is, but how are you? Like, how is your heart? Like, how have you been like dealing with this? And nobody's helping you. And I just broke down. I was like, for the first time, I felt heard and seen and valued, and like my life mattered. And he got me in surgery within 3 weeks. And the night before surgery, the disease had eaten a hole that big through my skull, and the spinal fluid from my brain was leaking into my ear. So when they cut the back of my ear to do the surgery, it just started gushing out. And it was supposed to be a 4-hour surgery that turned into 7. And he was able to, you know, take part of my skull and patch it up and rebuild it. And he told me, your ears are mine, and you never have to worry a day in your life again, because I will never let you go, you know, that far without making sure we don't intervene or do something different. And yeah, he saved my life, and I thank him every day. And I'm just so fortunate that I didn't give up, because I wouldn't be having this conversation with you today.
Wow, phenomenal. That's powerful. So what is something that, how did that disease even come in the first place? Is it something that was genetic, or is it something that?
No, just lots of kids have troubles with ear infections, and usually they get tubes put in their ear to just help it drain. And then these tubes get pushed out as you grow. So if they would have just done that, it would have been fine, but they didn't do that. So that would be the first mistake, I think, on like a medical, you know, world. And the doctors, they're just not educated. You know, I don't blame them, because they have a general knowledge of a bunch of things, but they're not specializing in certain things, and they're taught to treat the symptom, not what caused it. And it's just the way our system is set up. And it's not, in the Western, I feel like we don't do prevention. We do like, once it's acute and like killing you, disease and cancer, like why don't we focus more on the prevention, like
the root,
putting the tubes in, talking about mental, emotional health and addiction and trauma and all of that. Not like, okay, now you're depressed and you're suicidal. Well, why is that?
Yeah, we need to focus more on the prevention, not just on treating it once it's here, because after it's too late, you know, it's just like,
it's too late. And it's hard to undo 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, 80 years. And our emotional body shows up as aches, pains, ailments, diseases, cancer, headaches, migraines, accidents. All of those are signs to wake the fuck up.
Yes.
Yes.
Speaking of that, when did you wake up?
Well, I think I woke up in, I always was aware, but it made me afraid. But my rock bottom, let's say, my dark night of the soul, was in 2008. And at that point, I was in University of Arkansas at Little Rock, playing volleyball and finishing up my university. So I graduated in 2009, and I had attracted a man in my life at that time, and it led to the criminal system and just a low energy. That's what we talked about, attracting energy. So I had a lot of trauma and childhood wounds. So I was attracting people. So I had a lot of like boundaries for myself and morals and standards for myself, but I didn't have boundaries on how other people would treat me. So with that, I allowed this man to hurt me and take advantage of me. And I just kept giving him a second chance, and he'd love bomb me, and he's typical narcissist sociopath. So, and then he also abused alcohol and drugs. So we do gnarly shit against our moral compass, you know, when we're doing that kind of stuff and living that lifestyle. So it just led to a long, dark road to depression. And then I finished university, and it should have been the happiest time of my life. And I was feeling heartbroken. And then I had allowed being a student athlete my whole life be my identity. So like, it was almost like an identity crisis, as well as a heartbreak, as well as I hadn't even grieved for my mom. And it had been 7 years since my mom passed. And then, but 5 years previous to my mom passing, she was out of my life. Like she left my life when I was in grade 6. So I was, 12 years old and 11 years old when my mom was not in my life. She was on this physical plane, but I had to grieve my mom before she even passed from this earth plane. So like grieving someone while they're still alive is next level. Grieving someone when they leave this earth, and then not even processing what grief is for another 7 years. So I had like 5 years, and then 7 years. So that's 12 years of just like stuffing it down and like being an overachiever and a workaholic and keeping myself busy. And what are emotions? I only have two. I'm angry or sad or happy and glad, So it just, it led to me discovering there's more than just a physical body. And I need to work on my emotional health, my mental health, my spiritual health, and my soul health. And then that led me to a Reiki practitioner. And then with that led me to, angel card readings and intuitive psychic mediumship, and then Akashic Records, and then plant medicine, ayahuasca. So it kind of just, it was like an onion. Like it was just over time and through me avoiding all my pain and trauma until I was 2010, when like I had the wake up in 2008, rock bottom, but it took me some time to unravel. And then 2010 was like the light switch went off and I was like, I got to deal with this. I can't run away from it. I can't avoid it. I can't out travel it. I can't outsmart it. I can't outwork it. And then that's what led me to all that. And then traveling really opened me up because I didn't have anybody to answer to, I didn't have to, I was traveling solo a lot of it too. So I was putting myself in situations that I was like shitting my pants, but I was thrilled at the same time.
Wow. What a powerful story. I mean, I don't even need to ask you a question because you just progress beautifully where I want to take this, just covering the things. I don't need to ask you the question, just bring them yourself. So that's beautiful. So you mentioned all of that. We're going to cover all of that in a moment, but now you mentioned traveling. What was your very first trip you took?
So like I had been to like Mexico and Hawaii, like just for like, I went to Hawaii for basketball for my like high school team. And then I went to Mexico for a couple of weddings. But when I started traveling in 2012, I had initially went to Indonesia and Thailand with a group called Free and Easy Traveler. And I went with 3 other girlfriends. So they like, they set up all your flights and your boat rides and your trains and like the accommodations, but you get to choose what you want to do once we're there. So it was like pretty open, and it's people it ranges from like 18 years old to 30-year-olds typically. And then they have 2 leaders for each country. And so I did 20 days Indonesia, 20 days Thailand. And then
what they have in Europe called Contiki tours.
I've heard of that. Yes. It's very similar. I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's similar, and it's a Canadian company, and they're amazing. Wow. The leaders were amazing. And it was definitely a life long memory and friendships that I cherish. But after that, when my friends flew back, I decided to stay because my idea was like, I want to go and see what it's about. I had never done it. I had never backpacked. Traveling and backpacking is totally two different things. So then after they all left and my friends went back home, I ended up going to the Philippines by myself. Nice. And then what about they actually, I was told if you can travel the Philippines, you can travel anywhere in the world. So I was like, I'm up for it. Let's go. Mm-hmm. And I loved it. It was beautiful. The most beautiful beaches, the most beautiful people. There were some crazy situations of like putting myself out there and like riding a shuttle all day, like thinking I'm going to catch this boat to this island. And then like this guy's doing like 100 to 120 all the way there. And there's
being
like
drunk.
people like sitting on top of me. You're just like jammed in this little shuttle, and they just keep picking more people up, and there's nowhere for these people to go, and then they're just flying around like where they're doing construction, or it's just like, you're like, like your sphincters puckered the whole time. Right. So I literally am on like all day, 5 hours riding this shuttle to get to this, boat, to take the boat over to Malapascua, which is one of the islands. And anyways, I get there and the guy goes, no boat. He already left.
You swim.
I was like, yeah, he's like, the boat already left. It's not going. So I'm in the middle of this village in the middle of nowhere. Very little people speak English. there's guys walking around with machine guns and machetes,
Really?
and like, it's a little bit like, oh, you don't want to
Wow.
be, I didn't want to be out past dark in an area that I didn't know. So I ran back to the shuttle and I'm like, stop. I said, the boat's not going. Do you know anywhere that I can sleep, And luckily there was like a travel agent, like just a little bit up the road, and he knew that she had a couple rooms, and typically she'd rent them out. So we luckily found this room, and I had a safe place to stay for that night to like ride the boat the next day.
Wow.
But like, the little girl in me and the fear that comes into your head just was like, oh, I'm not cut out for this, and just give up, and just stay small, or like stay in your room, like you feel like you want to just hide. But I went back to my room and I cried, had a moment, and then the next morning I got on the boat and got to this island, and it was the most beautiful experience. But if I would have just stopped at that one like obstacle, let's say, and I don't look at obstacles, I look at it as opportunity.
Yes.
And
Stepping stones.
yeah, I leaned in and just asked my angels and guides and loved ones to support me and keep me safe, and surround me, and bring the right people in my life, and on this path. And it ended up being amazing. And then I went and swam with like whale sharks, and I went to this cave where it's like this, it's one of the wonders of the world, and it's just this beautiful underground like river in this cave. We even had to wear like a hard hat. It was in Palawan, so it was more north, and I had been south, like in Oslo is where I went diving with the whale sharks. And anyways, I was supposed to go to India right after Philippines. So you only have so many days to travel each of those countries. So you have to leave the country. I think the Philippines was 22 days. So I was supposed to be flying over to India, and before you go to India, you have to get a traveler's visa before you get there. Whereas the other countries, you can get one upon arrival. So I was waiting for my Indian visa to be approved, and it just wasn't happening, but I had to leave the Philippines. So I had reached out to a couple friends. I said, where should I go that's close to India where I can get, visa upon arrival? And then once I get my Indian visa, I can go to India. So it worked out perfectly because Nepal was not on my list. So I ended up flying to Nepal, Kathmandu, and it was the most amazing experience, Payman. And I'm just so glad that you talked about the travels, because I don't get to share this often. And not that I don't, it just, not a lot of people ask, like, where have you traveled and what are your experiences? But when I got to Nepal, I had signed up for to go to a retreat to stay with the monks at a monastery. And I learned about Tibet Buddhism. So I got to live, eat, and breathe what the monks do. And it was the most magnificent experience, because that's when I truly started realizing I haven't grieved for my mom. Like, I haven't even been still or quiet enough to acknowledge that I have abandonment issues, and I have neglect, and I have, I'm a workaholic, and I'm an overachiever. I got all these things that society says to have and do, but yet my heart doesn't feel whole. It doesn't feel happy. I feel hollow. I don't feel like myself. And so, but with that, I avoided India, and they had the biggest blackout in history. Like, all the power went out.
Wow.
Like the whole country, the biggest blackout. Like, there was, chaos, and it was nuts. So I avoided going to India right away, went to Nepal. It ended up being my most favorite country. I will go back there. And then I ended up going to India, and it was the most beautiful experience. And the Philippines and India were two countries I had always dreamed of going. And they were both the hardest countries for me personally to like navigate, and really challenged, and that uncomfortable, that comfort level was definitely leveled up in those countries.
Wow. Wow. When you were doing all these trips, were you documenting your journey on a blog, a YouTube channel, or anything like that?
Nothing. And
Wow.
social media wasn't as big as it is now. And I wasn't good at verbalizing my life back then, because I still had a lot of unraveling to do. So me speaking today, I didn't even know how to use my words, never mind express it in a way that didn't show up as anger or like being triggered or reactive, because I was also a people pleaser, and I wanted to keep everybody happy and take all their pain. So like I wasn't very good at like expressing truly what was going on in my heart and the trauma that I had experienced, and I just didn't want to ooze my wounds onto others. So I really avoided a lot of emotions and feelings because of that.
That would be a beautiful book. Has it crossed your mind to write a book about your journeys, your travels, the lessons that you learned through your travels? That would be a phenomenal book, actually.
Well, and that's where, I have multiple people, the people who are really close with me and really know me for who I am in my heart and in my soul. They say to me all the time, you have to write a book. Like you have so much to share, and your experience in life, never mind how you grew up in your childhood, and then like the wide range of travels and being a high level athlete and
Yeah, not just
going,
your
I
travel.
should have been dead and rock bottom on the streets and overdosed statistically,
Yeah.
probably by grade 9, but I made a choice in grade 9. I'm going to go this route, the way my parents go, which is unsatisfactory and unrewarding and unfulfilling, or I go this way and I'm going to create a way that, is maybe the road less traveled. And if the crowd's going this way, I'm probably going to go this way. And I kind of, like I said, I've observed my whole life. So through my parents' actions, I knew they weren't making really great choices with their life. And then with every choice is the equal and opposite reactions. So
Yeah.
I really realized, like, what am I going to put my energy and time into? And sports saved my life. And I can
Yes.
say, my teammates and my coaches, they were my family.
That's beautiful. Wow, we're gonna get into that because for me as well, the two biggest schools of life have been sports and travel. We're gonna get into that. But speaking of books, you can write so many books on so many things, like overcoming your NDEs, near-death experiences, overcoming, the thing that you had in your ears, the the scholarship. What is it like to get a scholarship for sports and doing that? I mean, you have so many amazing. I view life as a school. I view it as a buffet for us to try a little bit of everything. And you've been blessed to be invited to one of the most varied and richest buffets so far in life. And this can be amazing. And a book is one way. And of course, another way that I'm very passionate about is a podcast, because it's so much easier to just talk than just writing. And then once you have the episode, you can easily turn them into a book. So that's definitely something that, my stance on that, highly recommend for you to do it, because you have so much. You've been gifted with so many beautiful gifts to share, and that's one of the most efficient ways, the most best ways for you to share those. So, wow, so glad I'm talking to you, because I told you we can do an entire podcast just me and you, and just talking about the beautiful lessons and your beautiful journey, and sharing about your experience with all these dishes you've been sampling around the world on this beautiful buffet that is this life.
Absolutely. And, at one point I felt like it was very heavy and burdens, but then I transmuted and alchemized and turned them into my blessings. And, through those experiences led me to where I am. And, I can't say I would change it. I don't wish it upon my worst enemy, what I had been through, like as a child and growing up and being parentless. And it just, I feel through my journey, I can help guide others back to their light. And even when it's feeling heavy and dark, I can really relate on a lot of levels, like you said.
Totally. Now let me take you on a different type of travel through memory line. Go back to when you're a young girl. When we were kids, people around us, family, friends, teachers ask us, "So Kehly, what do you want to become when you grow up?" What was your answer back then?
I wanted to be a phys ed teacher.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. And then it turned to I wanted to be like a trainer for high level sports, like pro sports. And then it turned into I wanted to be a lawyer. And I even went as far as writing my LSAT, and then I realized, like, no, there's that's not where I'm gonna create my biggest, impact and leave my imprint on other people's hearts. And I experienced, the justice system in a different way, and see my parents and people go through that. And there's very little justice in our system, unfortunately, in Canada, I guess specifically, but I think it's a global global pandemic, and
Yeah.
a lot of the people who are incarcerated, because my minor is criminal justice as well, which I did a lot of my internships in Arkansas when I was there. And I was working with an ex DEA agent, which is Drug Enforcement Agency. And we did these internship programs that were reentry programs for these inmates who had been incarcerated for 20, 25 years and in and out of the system and the prison and all of that. And with that, we were teaching them life skills and how to go through an interview process and little like life skills to how to come back into society and be productive, and where you have a job set up. So we would get them jobs set up. We would teach them how to interview process and, you know, make sure they have somewhere safe to go to so they don't end up back, you know, back in prison, because on average, these inmates end up back in prison 6 to 7 times before they even, you know, stay out, or they end up dying in prison. And, you know, it just becomes this generational cycle, and, you know, we're passing, you know, their wounds onto the next one. And I feel it goes back to that prevention, is like, what happened to these children when they were young, and what communities did they grow up in, and what experiences were they, you know, exposed to when they were innocent and naive. And we don't just turn into criminals, and we don't just turn into hurting other people or causing harm. Something happened to those people in prison. And I was just so fortunate to be a part of that internship program and a part of the board and the panel to help these inmates find hope, and to not allow their past be their identity. And
Beautiful.
we can do better, and we can learn, and we can be better. And I just got to witness, you know, the most beautiful moments. And then there's some innocent people behind, you know, behind bars that, you know, put themselves in a shitty situation, and 1 second change their life. And from my perspective, they would be innocent, but in the justice and the criminal perspective, they're not. And I just feel that before we give our power away, or before we you know, are led to prison, let's talk about the real problems and what's really going on in people's hearts and homes.
That's where it usually should start. Absolutely. Totally agree with that. Now, let's stay to when you were a kid. You mentioned, what would you say was your favorite subject in school?
Phys ed.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, I was like a athlete to the bone.
What would you say was the one subject you could not stand?
Probably drama. I hated drama. I was just like, this is
Really?
pathetic. But like, I think back then I was just too like in my own way. Like, I didn't know how to lighten up and just like be free to just play or express or perform. It always had to be like very structured, like, you know, volleyball and basketball and the sports I chose were very like A to B. Like, you have to pass the ball, and then you set the ball, and then you hit the ball. So it's like, you know, drama and like the skits, and, you know, just, I don't know, the teacher, it seems to me like I wasn't resonant with them. I was more into like the science and, you know, the anatomy and the phys ed teachers and, you know, the outdoor rec. Like those were my jam.
You mentioned something that played a big role in your life, volleyball. Why did you choose volleyball? What got you into volleyball?
Well, it wasn't my height, because I'm only 5'5.5".
Yeah.
So if my parents were picking a sport, it definitely wasn't them. No, I chose volleyball and basketball because, number one, I couldn't afford individual sports. My parents couldn't afford that. They didn't put me in, you know, figure skating or gymnastics or you know, any of those individual sports, because number one, financially it wasn't there. Number two, they didn't support me. They didn't take me to my games or my practices. So when playing school sports, basketball and volleyball, for example, you travel on the school bus, you travel with your team, your parents don't drive you to and from tournaments or competitions or performances. And it gave me that safe space to go to and get away from that, you know, toxic environment that I had at home. And it gave me a safe space to express, you know, my energy and emotions on the court in a positive way. And I feel it kept me focused, which led me to being one of the top athletes, like 100 athletes in Western Canada for basketball, grade 10, 11, and 12. And then it also led me to getting the Division I scholarship to the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. So I had played basketball and volleyball right till grade 12, but I had broke my back going into grade 11. And I just kept getting hurt. Like I got hurt a couple more times, my back, playing basketball every time. It seemed to be like, you know, I would take a jump shot, get pushed, fall on my back, or, you know, I slipped on the ice and tweaked it again. So what I had kind of like made logic sense in my head was, if I'm going to walk after I play 4 years post-secondary, like what sport between basketball and volleyball will allow me to, you know, still be walking at the end of, you know, the 4 years of competition. And I chose volleyball because, you know, I know when I'm going to jump, I know when I'm going to dive, I know, you know, when I'm hitting the ball. I don't have someone like hip checking me in the air, like trying to, you know, hold me or tackle me. Because basketball, they say it's non-contact sport, which is a lie. It's very aggressive. And I also had enough common sense, you know, the higher level you play, these girls get stronger, meaner, faster. And I was a point guard, so I was always being double teamed, triple teamed. You know, like they were out to get me, like sticking their knees out when I would drive the ball in to, you know, do a layup or pass the ball. And it was like, I was like I was the prey and they were the predators. And I just didn't like that energy about it, because I was like, I'm really going to get hurt. And this is actually going to affect the rest of my life, not just, you know, the game right now. So, and I mean, volleyball, I'm so thankful I did it because it took me to the highest level I could play in the US. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I was thankful. I was an outside hitter my whole life, like a right or left side hitter. And then it's called power is the position. And I mean, I could jump high, but I'm 5'5.5". And then when I went to the US, my teammates were 6'7". Like, whoa. You know, I played defensive specialist when I went to the US, and you know, my ego and my pride was like, oh, I still want to hit the ball and kill the ball. But I was like, you know what, what's best for the team is, you know, I'm defensive specialist and those chicks are blocking and hitting the ball. And then we dig and, you know, do serve, receive. And, you know, I would serve as well. So in the US, it's a bit different. Defensive specialists and liberos are similar, but in Canada, the libero takes usually out the middle for the back row playing. But they can't serve. But in the US, the liberos can serve. So that's what's cool about it. And then for my position, I was a defensive specialist. So I would play the back row. And then there's like the offensive specialist. So pretty much you'd play 3 positions in the front, sub out. And then I would come in, I'd play the 3 positions in the back, like as you're rotating. And then I would sub out as I was going to the front.
So, are you talking about the different styles of playing? Because my understanding is that the rules are international and the same all over the world. My sport is football, soccer, and it's the worldwide, the same thing. Any country you go, the same rules, but the styles vary from country to country. Is that what you're referring to? Yeah.
So it's a very similar game, but just some of the rules are different. So for example, liberos can't serve in Canada, but they can serve in the US. In Canada, you can't play the ball off like the score clock or a wall, but you can do that in the US.
So what happens? So what happens when there's an international game between Canada and the US? They have to abide by the International Volleyball Board rules, because they cannot try to impose the American style or the Canadian style. What happens in that case?
So I don't quote me, because I mean, it's been many years since I played. 2010 is when I finished, right? So what I believe is more the Canadian way of doing it, because as soon as it hits the mat or a score clock, you know, it kind of, and it also depends on how high the roof is. In some stadiums or gyms, the roofs are lower. So they'll say, okay, you can play off the roof. But then other stadiums and places, arenas you play, the roof's really high, so you don't get to play off the roof. So I think it's really dependent on where you're at. But typically, as soon as it hits an object, or a chair or a wall, it's out of play. Play's done.
Wow. So you mentioned also that you had to, you know, for me, that's why I keep on saying, for me, the 2 biggest schools of life have been sports and traveling. For you said sports initially provided you with a safe environment to escape the toxicity of home. And then because you felt safe, and with friends and all that, that allowed you to blossom and find a place for you to your passion, which is volleyball. And then when you went to the US, then you had to adapt. It taught you how to adapt to new environment, new regulations, new rules. So speaking of that, how difficult was it to going from your town in Canada to Arkansas in the US? How difficult was it to adapt to different environment, different styles of play, maybe different way of living? How challenging was that? And how did you
Yeah,
overcome
so
that?
like, yeah, so like going across North America, because I'm from Northeast BC, and then I went to Arkansas, which is like the east side of North America. So just like the heat, it's so
Right.
hot there, and the humidity. So like that level was an adjustment. The level of play was way, way, way higher than I had ever played in my life. I didn't even believe that I could play that level growing up, because I grew up in a small town of like 20,000, and here I am, Division I scholarship in the US, getting a full ride. I felt so blessed. So adjusting to that was almost easy, because I was like, this is an opportunity. This feels good. I don't like 7 months a year of winter. So this
Oh
actually
yeah.
feels better. Um,
How
and the
cold does it get
coaching,
there?
sorry.
How cold does it get in the place you were in
Oh, like
Arkansas?
-30, -40 Celsius. Like it's nasty cold.
Oh
And
really?
winter lasts like 5 to 6 months a year. It could be even
In
7, 8.
Arkansas? Wow.
No, in Canada.
Oh, I know,
But
but I'm asking about
Arkansas, it gets to like, yeah, +35, +40, and then maybe the lowest, maybe like -5 Celsius.
oh wow,
They do
okay.
Fahrenheit, but yeah, so it was like when I went home for Christmas, this will give you a little
Mm.
scale. So in December, I went home for Christmas, it was +15 Celsius. And then I went to -30 Celsius. So that was
Wow.
a 45-degree difference. So like that'll give you a scale of like,
Oh yeah.
woo. But then when I got there, Payman, I ended up with kidney stones.
Oh no.
So because I was in so much pain, I couldn't even compete right away.
Sure.
And then I also, when you get a scholarship, you get this form called I-20. And it's just saying that you have a scholarship for the school and like for how much money, da 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 da. So, anyways, the international service lady from University of Arkansas forgot to give that to me, forgot to send it to me. So I ended up going there, and the guy, going through the US, borders, they were like, you can't go there to be a student. You need to be, where's your I-20? I was like, what's an I-20? Like, what does that even mean? And he's like, well, that's, so it says you have a scholarship and you're going to the school and you're not just trying to get in the country like illegally. And I'm like, well, I am going to school. And like, anyways, he was kind of a not very kind human, and I cried, and he's like, I'll let you in as a traveler, but you need to come back here and show me your I-20. So anyways, I go to Arkansas, and because this lady did not give me this I-20, it actually voided my scholarship, because I wasn't signed in as a student athlete. So I could not compete for this school and this team unless my paperwork was right. So I actually had to miss the first preseason tournament. I couldn't even practice. And then on top of that, I had kidney stones. So I was like, oh my goodness, I just made the worst mistake of my life. Like, why did I come here? I'm in pain. These people don't even know what they're doing. And anyways, I had to fly back to Canada like 2 weeks later. And literally the guy that I got this time, he said, Kelly, you could have just let that expire, and you could have went to an international airport, like Mississippi would have been like a 2-hour drive away from me. And we could have went to the closest international airport, got it stamped as a student athlete. But
Oh no.
this guy had told me I need to fly all the way back to Canada, which I did once I got my paperwork sorted out. I'm not kidding you. It was a stamp. And then I walked back and then got on the flight and went home. And that was all out of my pocket, my dime, because of
Wow.
this lady's tardiness and not giving me the proper paperwork. And then this guy who stamped it, he was like, I am so sorry. Like, that was very rude of that guy. He knew there was other options. He told you one of the options, and I'm very sorry you experienced that. And I was a bit
Wow.
of an emotional wreck mentally. And
Sure.
then I was going through the the kidney stones, and they compare that to being in labor pains. It felt like someone was stabbing me. So once I kind of got that all sorted out, I transferred there as a junior as well, which is a third year. So I did my first 2 years at college in Canada, and then I transferred there as a junior. So typically you don't know if you're going to start or even play. Like, I mean, I was offered a full ride, but that didn't mean I was going to be playing. So I missed the preseason tournament. I missed a few practices. I felt behind, but then when I started practicing and competing, we ended up winning like 3 of the preseason tournaments. We had like a 24-3 season. Like, it was amazing. Like, we were really awesome and we did well. But it was a very, very gnarly kind of like hard, heavy start. And then both years that I competed, we were one game away from winning like the Sun Belt Conference, which would have, gave me a couple rings. So there's some regrets and fire in me still to like want to complete that mission. And we were very capable, but we just didn't pull through on those very important key moments or those games, when we should have won a game and we lost it, or, beat ourselves in a game. So, my junior and senior year, we made it to the Sun Belt Conference tournament, and then make it to the semifinals, and then you're just like can't pull through. And we had the champs. We were the underdogs, and Western Kentucky had won the year before, and it was a 2-game difference, so you have to win by 2 points in volleyball, and we were in our 5th set. So that means we won 2 sets, they won 2 sets, 5th sets to 15, you got to win by 2. Well, we had the ball, it was 14-14, and we served the ball, and then they overpassed it. Well, my one teammate, I was telling her, like, when they overpassed it, that means it came back on our side, but it was going out of bounds. And I was like, it's out. Cause like, I'm defense, right? Like, you trust me. And she didn't trust me. Well, she went to go up and hit it. Cause sometimes when they overpass it, it comes off the net and you can hit it and kill the ball. But the fact that it was out of bounds, that would have been an easy point. So then we would have been 15-14.
Match point.
But instead she hit it and it went like under the net on our side, which is their point. And then it was 15-14. And then the other team served and they had the momentum. And then that was the end of the game. I just cried. And going back, I probably would have pushed my teammate out of the way. I would have just dealt with her after. Like, I was just like, you have to trust your teammate in that moment. And like, that is my position. You trust me and you don't need to be the hero. Like, we're a team here, pal.
Yeah.
So
wow.
That was my senior year. So I was like super crushed, but I was close, very close, but not quite.
Let's go back before at the start of this journey, when you first started training with the girls in Arkansas. Was it easy for you to get accepted by the team and the girls, or how did they see you? Did they see you as like an outsider, or did they embrace you from the get-go? Or
no, so our team was very multicultural. So I had teammates from China, Germany, Romania, Brazil, Canada. There was only four people from the US, and the rest were like international people. So it was very, warm and welcoming and loving. There were some language barriers and like some things we had to work through, but ultimately it's like it's a sport. So we all know how to play the sport. Now it's just communicating the plays and where, we should be at the right time. Right.
Did you at the end of your journey and at that university, did you consider going professional, and did you have any offers to go professional, or what happened then?
Yeah, so I did have a thought that I want to go professional, and I was wishy-washy with it because I'd competed in high-level sports since I was in grade 4. Like, I was tired, I was burnt out. I had been a student athlete my whole life, so a part of me was just done and burnt out and didn't want to look at a book or a textbook or a volleyball for a little while. And then I also wanted to go travel and start my career. So, women's volleyball, you don't get paid a whole lot, even if you go play pro, indoor specifically. And I just wasn't willing to like spend that much more time away from my family and my roots and my community, because I wanted to build something after you know, I had been done university and
Sure.
come back and coach and be a part of my community. But I definitely could have. And I still think a part of me wants to go play pro beach volleyball and do like a world tour
Yes.
and transition to the beach game. But
Yes.
I don't think I have any part of me that wants to go back to the indoor game. I play, you know, for fun and recreational. I'll play in some tournaments, you know, some mixed tournaments and stuff here and there. But my heart, I think, is leading me more towards the beach and
Okay.
hot weather and
Yes.
travel. So yeah, I have some big goals with that, but I just have them in the back of my brain right now and kind of like this wish list. So when the timing's there, I would love to travel the world and play beach volleyball and just, yeah, enjoy the game and teach the game.
So you want to play it for fun, or are you planning on playing it to get into beach volley as a part of
Competitively, I would love to
competitive?
represent my country. Like I'd
Oh
love to
wow.
represent Canada or the US. You know, that might be a far off goal, but I think I am more, so I had the physical and all that, like the mental and the physical to get there, but now I've taken care of my heart and my soul and my mind and my emotional body. So I really feel I could be that much of a better player, even though I still play, you know, the highest level I could achieve at that stage in my life. I feel I have more to give, and I would want to
Yeah.
compete on the highest level, you know, in the world. I am dual citizenship actually of the US
Okay.
and Canada. So I don't care what country I represent. I would love to represent one of these countries and North America. And yeah, I just love the game. So
Okay, the next Olympics is when, in 2024 in Paris, right?
yeah, so maybe I'll go to Paris and you can come
Woohoo.
cheer me on, Cayman.
I will go, yes, because I grew up in France. It would be a perfect opportunity for me to go back to France,
Yes, let's do it.
Awesome.
Let's if we can
All right.
imagine it, we can do it, you
Totally.
know, achieve it, right?
Totally. Wow. So when you studied at that university in Arkansas, what was your major?
So my major, so the first 2 years was kinesiology and special
Okay.
education. And then when I transferred, in the US, they do like a kinesiology with a health and exercise science, like kind of mixed. It's like an education with the kinesiology. So that's what I did. I went from kinesiology for the first 2 years to health and exercise science. And then they didn't have special education as a minor at my school specifically. So that's where I picked up the minor in criminal justice, because I was very fascinated, and I thought I wanted to go to law school and, you know, work with the Drug Enforcement Agency and, you know, take down these people that are, you know, abusing drugs and hurting, you know, innocent children. And I just thought you know, I kind of have a thrill for that, you know, like the adrenaline rush and that kind of lifestyle. And but yeah, I just was like, man, it's too heavy. I don't know if I could do that. I'm super heart-centered and I would just want to adopt all these adults and kids.
Yes, absolutely. That's where you belong, because you were blessed with a gift, and that's the best way for you to use that gift. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. See, this is powerful because we've been talking for an hour now, and it's been flowing freely, very beautiful. All the script, all the question I had completely out the window because no need for that. But so you mentioned about your path, you mentioned about all of that. Now, one question I want to ask you is that, and you brought that briefly earlier, is that I'm sure there's the saying, I'm sure you heard of it. It's change your story, change your life. And by story, I mean what we keep on telling ourselves inside our head. So when you're at your lowest, how did you do to change your story, to either to change your life or bring your life to where you want it to be? Did you do it to the help of friends, family, mentors, books? So tell us a process that you used to change your story, to change your life.
Yeah, I don't think I was ever felt like I was a victim,
Mm-hmm.
but what I did do was shut down and close off my heart. So once I started opening up my heart again, that led me to like reading books or taking courses or taking programs or putting myself at a monastery and, you know, traveling. So I think I'd always been curious, but you know, I don't feel like there was one thing that changed my path. I feel like it was many things. And it's, like I said, that onion layer of one layer, and then of course what you're ready for, what's being revealed is ready to be healed. And what I discovered is, in order to heal anything, you need to feel it first. And when I became still enough and quiet enough and compassionate towards myself, because I had a lot of self-care, but no self-love. And when I started integrating that self-love practices in my daily practices, that's really when my life started changing. So maybe it was more like limited beliefs I'd be telling myself, but not so much like, oh, my life's hard and poor me. Like I never really had that inner dialogue. But what I did have is wanting to protect others, so I wouldn't share what harm people were doing to me, because I didn't want to hurt my family or my friends or disappoint, or maybe, that person gets cut out or they go to jail because of the things that they're doing to me. So I carried everybody's pain. And then when I was tired of carrying their pain and it was heavy, I was like, the light switch went off, and I was like, no, this is what these people want. They want to keep me small. They want to keep me held hostage. They want to keep me, where I'm dimming my own light and I'm not confident, to own it. And when I started just verbalizing how I felt, and through support and therapy and connection and community, people were like, this is not okay, Kehly. Like, what is going on? That's not normal. Like, that might be your normal, but that's not normal.
Wow, that is powerful. And how long did it take you to completely change all of that?
So I would say it started in 2008 to now, and it's going to be a life journey.
Of
Because
course, yes.
again, you get one layer and there's a bit more, but when you kind of get in the nitty gritty and slowly but surely you will get to the bottom of the depths of that barrel. And if you can allow that, energy to go away from you, it will no longer poison you. And
Yes.
it was poisoning me for very long. And that was a choice that I was making.
Wow, amazing. Now, let's talk about your business. Tell us what are you doing with all the good stuff you're doing in the world right now?
Well, what I'm doing, so I had a physical location for 4 years from 2015 to 19. And it was a private studio for strength and conditioning. And I did dry lands and empowerment classes for kids who struggled with ADHD and attention, behavioral, sensory issues, all those children who didn't do well in a phys ed environment in the school systems. They would come to me for their credits and their hours. And I did a lot of general population. So I did anything from powerlifting to kickboxing to high intensity interval training to, agility, sprinting, just helping people move their body better and more efficiently, and injury prevention, that kind of stuff. So people would always come to me for training, and then they would try to, dial in their nutrition. And then they're like, okay, what is this, my pain in my heart, or this, natter in my brain, this hamster wheel, like, what is this? So what I discovered my whole life, I was trying to help heal the physical body and train, your ailments and your aches and pains and your injuries and your imbalances. And what I started recognizing is people's emotional body shows up in our physical body. And that's where I really switched my mission, is I want to help people from the inside out. So by healing their trauma and their shadows and the things that they've experienced and worked through those limited blocks and those limited beliefs, then from there, because you love yourself and you're taking care of yourself, you're going to move your body because you love it. And then you're going to fuel it with good food because you love it. And I feel like it needs to be from the inside out. So I really did a 180 with my mission and what I'm doing now. So I shut down in 2019, and thank goodness I did, because COVID rolled out 6 months later, and I had already been kind of transitioning to the online world. So I felt really comfortable and confident that, with the experience I had and the amount of people that I worked with, like I was training 60 to 70 people a day and 5 days a week, for 4 years. And, you get to know a lot of people and a lot of their traumas and stuff going on in their life, and just seeing patterns, right? So with that led me to like, no, I want to do the energy healing first, and like kind of the nitty gritty gnarly work. And then the people who are ready for that, then we'll dial in their training, and then we'll dial in their nutrition. And then, rather than worrying about like the physical body, or I want to lose weight, I want to gain weight, I want to maintain weight, like, well, how about let's make your heart whole and feel in alignment again, and then, deal with your trauma and the hard stuff in life. And then from there, we just, practice perfect practice, and really come from a space of alignment.
Cool. Awesome. Who's your ideal client?
Well, that has changed. So I used to train anywhere from 8 years old to 65-year-olds, and I would have high level athletes. I'd have sheep hunters. I'd have kids with behavioral issues. I would have, ex strippers, and like, you name it. I had every walk of life. But my avatar and the person that I tend to attract and seem to be coming in my life and what feels in alignment is the people at their rock bottom, or the people who have done every diet or every lotion, potion, wrap, and, way of moving their body, and they're still not feeling quite whole, and they're still, reactive, and triggers are still coming up, and they're feeling hopeless, but they have a bit of faith left in them. So I tend to pick up people from the rock bottom, or people who've kind of given up on, humanity and the systems. So
That's perfect. So tell us now,
yeah.
share with us an example of the most remarkable transformation you've seen from one of your clients so far.
I think for me, it's not even the physical transformations, because I've seen a lot of those, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're healthy and happy.
Yes.
So my biggest one that is just near and dear to my heart is a client of mine. Her goal was to fit in one seat on the airplane, and to go on a international cruise, like a cruise, like on a ship. And she never thought it was possible. And I made her write her dreams down and her biggest goals with no limits and no editing or censoring. And she wanted to fit on one seat, because she was big, and she, struggled with her weight her whole life. And she always felt uncomfortable, but she wasn't naive to, her weight or anything. She owned it. But with that, she went from literally being bed rest, couldn't get out of bed, couldn't even bathe herself because it was too hard to lift her leg over the bathtub. She lost her cycle, her period, because when you're over 450 pounds, you lose your cycle. And she had allowed, childhood trauma and life get to her, and which led her to this bed, and she couldn't afford to come to me. And I just said, I don't care. You show up and I will train you. We'll get you to where you need to be. And then she went from, just showing up barely to training 5 days a week. She started at 4 p.m. and then I had her as a 6 a.m. client. So just even that was just a massive level. We got her on the plane. She got on a cruise. Like a year later, she manifested all that. She was riding a bike, like to and from the gym. Like that to me just made me like realize this is why I do this, because I was able to, bring her through the dark and hold her hand and encourage her even on the days she didn't want to show up for herself.
That's beautiful. Wow. That's one of the most powerful transformations I've heard so far, but even more powerful, more beautiful, more impactful than that is, sure, you've changed and literally saved the life of one person, but in doing so, how many other lives have you impacted positively? The people around. I don't know if she has kids or family, but I'm sure you must have, or the people, your friends. That's even more powerful.
Yeah. So like me personally, or her?
For her.
Yeah. So, I think with her, she really cleaned house on her friendship level, on her family, the people who were dragging her down or bringing her down.
Yeah.
She was able to find confidence and go back to work again and really get out and be of service to people. And she really paid it forward. So she would also, refer people to my gym, because she she knew that this community helped her, and this connection, you know, made her keep showing up, and through my guidance and help and support, she paid it forward to many, many people. And she still thanks me every day for believing in her, even when she didn't believe in herself. And even when I was trying to tell her, you know, like, I believe in you, you can do this, you know, the world is your oyster. She didn't believe it, but I just kept, you know, guiding her to continue to show up even on those hard days. And now that's what she's doing for others.
That's amazing. Wow. That's ultimate for me. That's the ultimate reward. It's not the money, but the impact, the transformation, the lives you're changing for the better, and the inspiration, the empowering you give to people. That's the ultimate reward for anything you do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Wow.
she turned into one of my dear friends,
Oh,
and
for sure.
here, you know, she was in bed and couldn't get out of bed, didn't have the energy to get out of bed. Didn't think there was anything worth living for. And I thank my lucky stars every day. The timing and the alignment was there. And I had this space in the environment. And the whole goal of my gym was to create a safe space, home away from home, and a one-stop shop, and a place where you felt accepted and not alone. And, you know, we can all come from different walks of life, but we all have one goal in mind, is to be better and to show up, and to, you know, live a life of, you know, fulfillment and excitement and joy. And I definitely accomplished that. I gave away a lot of my time and energy, and I realized, you know, could I keep up to that long-term training, 60 to 70 people a day? The answer clearly was a no. So that transitioned me to the online world, which, I mean, I really helped my community, but then now I can help people all around the world. And I
Sure.
feel very excited to share my knowledge and my vision and my mission and my story, to help inspire others, to empower themselves to lead a better life.
Absolutely. Just to come and backtrack a little bit, I would love to hear more of the story of that lady. I would be honored to have her on my podcast to share her story,
Oh,
because
I'd
that's a
love
phenomenal
that.
story. Not only her, but I would love to have both of you together on a sometime in the new, after the new year. That would be phenomenal. Is that something that we can make
Yeah.
happen?
I think she might be open to it. I'll have to ask her.
All
I
right,
don't
sure.
know.
No rush.
Yeah.
Anytime in January, February, whatever, it would be
I'll
a
run
good,
it by
great
her.
time.
I think that would be amazing. And it would be such a healing experience for her to own her story, like, publicly. So, like, I will definitely put little, you know,
Yeah,
golden
please.
nuggets and plant the
Yeah.
seed.
But even more than that, it would be phenomenal for you to do so, to bring this kind of, to showcase this kind of amazing people, the transformation you've had on your own podcast, because you have such a gift, such a powerful story, transformation you've had. You could start many podcasts. One on talking about travels, one on talking about your NDEs, one about how, what is it to be a pro volleyball in the US. I mean, so many. I mean, you've had one of the most fulfilling riches. I mean, you've so far tasted, you haven't held back. You have been able to sample most of the dishes on this beautiful buffet that is this world, this life. So good for
Yeah.
you, and keep
Yeah.
doing it, and keep sharing your stories and all that through your own podcast. Looking forward for that. So yeah, wow, such a powerful.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's been a ride, and I
Sure.
just feel like I'm just getting started.
Oh, totally. I was just about to say that. Absolutely. Now, let's move forward. We almost let's wrap this up. It's been an hour and a half of amazing conversation. Now, what would you say is a cause that is the most that you're most passionate about?
I'd say just giving back to humanity, being of
Mhm,
service. That's near and dear to my heart, more specifically to the underprivileged and the juvenile delinquents and the troubled kids.
mhm,
I want to give them a voice when they don't know how to use theirs, or they haven't been
mhm,
taught. And I want to be the voice for the people who, number one, maybe can't share their truth, maybe don't know how to find the resources, and ask for the support, because I know asking for support and help is hard. And I just want people to know it's okay to ask for help and support. We're not meant to do this life alone, and none of us are getting out of here alive. So you may as well, just open up and be vulnerable and be raw, and just be gracious and compassionate and empathetic, and just have so much kindness for yourself through, that heaviness and those dark times.
Really beautiful. Wow. Beautiful. Now, let's wrap this up, and I'm going to ask you a series of rapid fire questions on advices. You ready?
Ooh, okay.
What has been so far the best piece of advice you've received?
Don't take things personally.
Love that. How about so far the worst piece of advice you've received? Get a job.
Yeah, get a job, and you always have to work hard for the things, like money doesn't come easy, or, you always have to work hard and hustle and grind.
Yeah.
Like, that's a shit limited belief.
Yeah. What do you think you are?
Yeah.
Just do
Or
what,
like toughen up, like man up, like come on. Yeah.
That's something that honestly Kevin was also he said the same thing, is do the right thing. Or one thing I hate hearing is be a man. I mean, what does that even mean?
Man.
You know?
Yeah. What does that mean? Exactly.
We had such a powerful conversation with Kevin just a week ago on that, is that on one hand, we're being led to believe that, hey, don't be a man because that's toxic. And then another one say, be a man. So what does that even mean?
Right. I agree. What does that mean?
Yeah, beautiful. Now, imagine that you were blessed with a time machine. You can go back in time and sit face to face with an 18-year-old Kehly. What's the number one piece of advice you would give to her, knowing all that you know now?
Be quick to forgive yourself.
But don't forget. Yes, absolutely. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Now, I know you don't have your podcast yet, but imagine you had your podcast and today you're interviewing the most special person in the world, which is yourself. So you're interviewing yourself. What's the first question you want to ask yourself? Don't think too much. What is the first thing that comes to your mind?
Just like, what is on your heart?
In a nutshell, what's the answer of that?
What is on my heart, or in my heart, I'm going to say,
Yeah.
I'm just so excited to just the greater mission, and just stepping into my truth and my purpose and my power, and not allowing, the darkness and the heaviness to identify me, or be my story, or the statistic that I should have been. And also, you get to create your own life, and nobody gets to tell you what life that is.
Totally love that. Absolutely. Now, my favorite question to ask: what's the smallest thing you've done that has had the biggest positive impact in your life? For me, it's been starting the podcast. How about you? And by small, let me small, I mean the one thing you've done that had the most positive and biggest impact so far.
I would say continuing to show up, and doing the work, and the healing, and the doing and the being, because over time it starts paying off. So people are just seeing, this overnight success, but it's like, I've been doing the work, for 15 years, the spiritual, the internal work. And, I had the physical and the mental, but now that I have them all aligned, people are really witnessing, me for who I am. And for the first time, I'm actually sharing, my story, and my radical truth. And I'm owning it, and I'm not apologizing for it.
Totally. That's one thing that is so powerful. People only see the tip of the iceberg. They don't, for example, for me, I started this podcast a year ago. For a year, I didn't get paid a penny. And then before that, I had to spend at least 10 years to learn all the skills for digital marketing and all that. And then another 20 years to learn to have the proper mindset. So again, as you say, you're a overnight success, 20 years in the making.
I know. And it's been a journey. I'm 33, and I'd say, majority of my life, I've been unraveling and learning and undoing and unparenting and untraumatizing and just undoing all the bullshit, and then
absolutely
building that strong foundation.
That's amazing. You're doing amazing things here. So Kehly, what is, if someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
Probably Facebook or Instagram. My E3 Alignment Academy is on Facebook and Instagram. And then my new website's going to be launching here in the next couple of weeks, which you can reach me at e3alignment.com. And then it'll have all my different services and upcoming events and things that are coming up in the future and in the present now. So yeah, the best way is just connect and say hello. And if I can support and be of service, then I would love to support you.
Your Facebook, is that your personal Facebook? You have a Facebook page?
I have a Facebook page. E3 Alignment Academy is my Facebook page. And then e3alignment.com will be my website that's going to be launching. It's a coming soon, or going to be revealed. Like we're working behind the scenes to do this and share it with the world. And
You mentioned also your Instagram.
Yeah, I have Instagram, and it's the same thing, E3 Alignment Academy.
Okay, perfect.
And I haven't been present on social media much on my pages, but I will be in the coming days and future, because I always did it physical, like people showed up to me. Now I have to, put it out there and share it and talk about it and speak about it, not just do it. So it's a new chapter for me.
Wonderful. It's going to be a beautiful chapter. Absolutely. Listen, Kehly, we can talk with you for hours. It's been an hour and a half, over almost 2 hours now. Pleasure. I salute you. You're a true leader with a heart. I, keep shining your light, keep blessing the world with your presence, keep sampling the beautiful dishes on this beautiful, delicious buffet that this planet is, keep doing what you're doing, and keep moving forward towards your goal of representing Canada, the US, preferably Canada,
That's right.
because we're better,
Yeah.
Go Canada, you know what I mean? We need
Go
that.
Canada.
I think Canada would need your talents more than the US,
Yes. And
so,
you know what? I'm open. I'm an open book. So wherever it
Canadian
feels
Volleyball Federation, listen to this person right here. You put the intention,
I set the intention, and the Canadian Olympic beach volleyball team, I'm coming for you, baby.
There you go.
I'm going to dream big. So hopefully we can do another interview
in
and
Paris.
podcast down the road with,
in Paris, in 2024.
Maybe some medals on me or an experience, at least. Like qualifying would be a massive goal.
That would be amazing from the beach. So listen, amazing. So I salute you. Wish you Merry Christmas. All the best wishes to you and your loved ones. And we'll definitely stay in touch and have a fantabulous day ahead of you. And once again, Merry Christmas. And
thank you. You too.
God bless, my friend.
I really appreciate it.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Yeah.